Are you ready to know what you don't know about social media? Well, then you're in the right place. This is the Seb Rust Show on Social Buzz on Air. Social Media Radio. Bring you tips, tricks, tools, and extreme value. Broadcasting from our studio in Miami. And now, here's your host, Sebastian Rust.
What is happening, party people? Hey, my name's Sebastian Rusk. I'm your host, as always. Welcome to the show. My guest this week, Doc Jen Fit, a.k.a. Dr. Jen Esker, is a top 40 physical therapy influencer. She's got a doctorate in physical therapy. She's ranked as one of the best fitness trainers on Instagram by Shape Magazine and has been featured in Self Magazine, Men's Fitness, Muscle and Fitness, as well as a select interview guest on CBS and on the Rise podcast with mogul CEO Rachel Hollis. I met Jen not too long ago via Instagram regarding a very transparent, very raw, real post about going through a breakup due to infidelity. I thought this individual gets it when it comes to actually being real in an unreal world. I got to track her down, sit down, have a conversation with her, and get to better understand what's going on with Doc Jen Fit. So, friends, if you could, please help me welcome to the show, Doc Jen Fit. What's happening?
Hello.
That name just like it just jives. It's like
It does, right?
Who are you, lady? I am Doc Jen Fit.
A lot of people just end up calling me that on a regular.
I almost like when you called me, I almost answered that. I'm like, is this really Doc Jen Fit? Great name on the great job on the name choice here. So great to finally connect with you. I've been following you for quite some time now. 10 years ago, if you said you were following me, I would call the police, but now it's pretty normal to just follow people all over the place.
Yeah, exactly.
And I remembered following your content, but not as not intentively. Is that the word I'm looking for? Yeah. As I did when, I guess earlier this year when you posted a very, very raw, authentic and just real post about where you're at and how, a breakup impacted you and really where you're at from that. I can only imagine that spoke volumes to the people that follow you, because unless you don't have a pulse, you've probably been through a breakup once or twice, or you're on your way. You'll have one day there. So I guess we can kick things off right now with, I want to know what, I don't want to say what inspired the post. That's probably the obvious, but when the words you started to wrap your head around this and said, you know what, I'm going to talk about this in a public space because I'm sure that it can impact and help other people. Where did that kind of originate from? Because it's not easy when life shows up to go, you know what, let's just bust out Instagram and tell everybody about it.
Yeah, definitely not easy. It was just something that as I was going through the process of the breakup and everything, everyone was reaching out to me and saying like, oh yeah, it happens. Like, oh yeah, me too. Like it's almost like a regular thing. About like infidelity and unfaithfulness and stuff. And I was like, well, why? Why is that such like a rampant big thing that it's just like, that's everyone experiences it? Because I don't think that has to be, especially in our day and age where you can have any kind of relationship that you really want to nowadays.
Sure.
You can design it however you want and you won't be judged for it. So why don't we bring in more truth and authenticity in something rather than just going behind someone's back and adding betrayal? Because I think what comes with that and what the other person might not even realize is that, yeah, you made a mistake and think like people mess up, obviously, but you mess with someone's psyche when there is that level of betrayal and lies and manipulation. And so for me, it was like, I want to bring this to the surface and have this not be a conversation that is, I'm going to say just especially a woman gets shamed about for bringing up, and have it be a voice of how can I look more deep into me? How can I look and not take this and make it like, oh, I wasn't good enough. I wasn't pretty enough. I wasn't this enough. But what was it in me that wasn't even seeing the signs that we weren't aligned? What was it in me that wasn't listening and trusting my own intuition? So that's where I wanted to really take it and say, it is okay to come out and talk about your own personal story. We all have our own stories. And it's those things that actually shape us and make us into who we are. It's life lessons. And granted, that was the greatest life lesson I've ever learned because it truly brought me back into me. But it really was just me wanting to rip the Band-Aid open on this conversation and say, it is okay to share your story. It is okay to process, to grieve, to experience and to come back into you.
Wow. Yeah. You could envision there's a fine line between, being a victim and then actually being an advocate.
Yeah.
I just made that up, but that's exactly what I was that was exactly my point on there. And there's a lot of victim. I love to say that all the time. My daughter's 18 and she'll say something like, I'm like, that's kind of victim-y. So yeah, and that's fantastic that you did that. And I commend you for your courage. Not everybody can do that. I know that, you and I talked a little bit before we started the show here. I went through a breakup about 3 years ago, and I've never experienced more pain in my entire life ever. Like I was in bed for a month, like me, Mr. 5 a.m. roll call, don't sleep till 7 ever, like in bed for a month, with a level of pain that cripples you.
Yeah.
It literally cripples you. And the people that really cared about me. Of course, I was in the middle of a personal development program, so you got your team and the whole nine. But even the people that are in my tribe and in my circle and in my family, just said, you just got to be with it. And I thought, oh, that's warming. And I'm like, you got to lean into it because the only way out is through. And I'm like, that's not what I'm looking to hear. And every day, and my sister's my roommate. She helps me with my daughter and whatnot. And we're really tight. She came home one day or it was one morning or something. And I just nonstop, like all I would do was, I never forget, I was so healthy too. I ate double cheeseburgers once a day, like from McDonald's, double cheeseburger. That was my only like happy time. And I chain smoked cigarettes just like a banshee. It was just, I was just terrible and destructive. And then I would go back to bed. Right. But when I was up in between cigarettes and cheeseburgers, my sister was here and I was looking for, a lot of people look for pity parties. I was definitely looking for one. And I said, my sister said, we're not having this conversation anymore. And I'm like, first I go back and I'm like, okay, cool. So you're my sister. I can talk to you. I can just listen to me. I love you. And there's nothing that you can ever do for me to stop loving you because you're my brother and we're tight. But this conversation doesn't serve either of us. And until this conversation changes, you and I are not going to have a conversation about this topic. I love you. I've got to leave for work. And she walked out the door. And I'm every single bleep and a bleep you could possibly think of after she's gone, thinking, my gosh, betrayal. Talk about victim mode, right? In retrospect, I look back and I go, I'm so glad that she never, as she would say, gave that conversation legs because it was a tough time. I got to a place where I Googled how to mend a broken heart.
Yeah.
And I came crazy, let the wheels spin.
No,
here.
I mean, this is a real thing. And I think people don't admit that enough.
No, I like literally, I've never even spoken about this I've never even told the story publicly to this day. Maybe I should. But I specifically remember the article popping up, the first search result on how to heal a broken heart or how to mend a broken heart or whatever variation you want. And it was from the Elephant Journal. And it was a letter to the brokenhearted. And that is when a lot of personal development happens after the class is over, after the course is over. It's that implementation time. It takes as long as it's going to take. But that's when it clicked about the self-love, because a lot of the summary of the post was that it was, if I can find it, listeners, it'll be in the show notes because it's an outstanding post. But it was, you are enough and you have everything you need within you for love, and you're worthy of love. You deserve it. And another friend said the reason your pain is so intense is because your love tank is unlimited. There's no cap. It's deep and it's wide. I'm like, well, that's refreshing. So there's a lot of things we don't. And the last thing I wanted to do, and people say, well, you meet somebody else, it'll be all. I said, you know what? I not that I'm bitter and I don't want to find someone. I just want to figure me out first.
Yeah, you can't think about that when you're going through everything. That's why for me as well, it's like I couldn't necessarily be around the people who were like, oh, you're fine, you're better off, it's great, it's good, move on, move forward. And it's like, okay, I will. I'll get there. I'm
Yeah.
just not there yet. And so if you can't hold space for what I'm going through, like I love you and I'm going to distance myself right now.
Yeah. That's a healthy, that's really, I've had to do that with family members. Through personal development is loving people from a distance. Not a lot of people talk about that either, because it's always so final, right? Everybody wants to cut people off, and that sometimes that's appropriate too, right? But yeah, loving people from a distance. Wow. So through let's back up a little bit and talk about how you became Doc Jen Fit. So your degree is in physical therapy. You've got your doctorate in physical therapy. Is that correct?
Yep. Doctor
Okay.
of physical therapy. Yeah.
So grew up in gymnastics and had never gone to physical therapy, but was obsessed with human anatomy and how it all works and can rehab, etc. Walk us through how you decided, you know what, this is the direction that I'm going.
Yeah, I mean, similar to what you said, after gymnastics, I coached gymnastics and I loved that, but it still wasn't like the thing that was filling me up. And I liked taping an ankle more. And then it was like, but
Yeah.
why am I taping an ankle? And what is this really doing? And really questioning a lot of things, even, teaching Pilates. I started teaching Pilates after I coached, and that as well. I would get a lot of people in that had different injuries, and I could work around injuries fine, and I can modify so we could still get the workout done. But for me, it was still like, okay, but what can I do more for this person? Like, why are they injured, and where is that coming from, and it was always this continual search of why. I loved anatomy, I loved biology, I loved all these sciences. So for me, once I got into undergrad and I was studying kinesiology, which is the study of human movement, it was really from there that I started working as a physical therapy aide. And I just decided, like, I love watching a physical therapist work. I love how they feel movement, how they watch movement. I love seeing what their brain is going through as they're helping someone along their journey. And that's definitely where I want to be. I don't want to be on the surgery side. I don't want to be on the nursing side. I want to be the person that's helping someone come back to who they are.
Love it. It reminds me of I had a guest on a couple episodes ago, Kelly Tennant. You know who Kelly is? She was the one I was telling you about that used to be on Fox affiliate and covered the LA sports in town. And just one day was like, I hate this job. It's not fulfilling. You have to talk to miserable people that are miserable that just lost a game. I don't want to do this. And she became very, very sick, and they couldn't diagnose what it was. They gave her everything under the boob. She's like, this isn't it. And she eventually set out on a journey to heal herself.
Yep.
Ayurveda and all, and she created an entire brand around it. She's completely healed and restored now, and has a whole entire brand about helping other people. So when I hear you say that, you want to help people, heal and to be their best potential, it's kind of comparable there. Like, I'm on this whole healing kick here. We've only got a lifetime to figure this whole thing out, right?
And that's the thing. It's about going along the journey, because it's always ever changing. And especially even after getting out of PT school and learning how, actually healing a person and helping them through their journey, like, that's not about me. I can facilitate the journey, but nothing I do hands-on literally is going to help you. It is everything that you do for yourself. And it's not just about the physical body, but it's everything within your environment. And
wow.
I mean, even same for what you were just talking about with Kelly, for her leaving her job, that came into a healing process, because if you're in a toxic environment, that's going to breed all of these other things that are underlying in our system. So that can bring up autoimmune diseases, that can bring up pain, that can bring up all these other things within our body. Our body talks to us. And so unless we're willing to look at our external environment and how that's acting on it as well, we're never going to get down to the underlying cause.
I love it. So yeah, it's like we live in a world where it's it's so masked, right? Just take a pill, you'll be fine.
Yep.
It was funny for years. I started doing chiropractic care back when my daughter was like 2, because and I started bringing her because she was having ear infections, and they wanted to put tubes in her ear the whole night. I was like, time out. And I brought her to my chiropractor, who's a total badass. She skydove. Her chute didn't open. She landed in a retention pond, broke almost every bone in her body, and lived to tell about it. Became a chiropractor. I'll never forget her. I couldn't tell you her name right now because it's been so long. But Anyway, she adjusted my daughter and the ear infections went away. So I was hooked on chiropractic care for forever and a day. Well, I'd also have lower back pain constantly. Like, I don't know if it was my mattress, I didn't work out. But I always think, well, it's time to go to the chiropractor again. Lower back's out of whack. And yeah, sometimes that's what's called. Now I've realized after working out consistently for the past 2 years at Equinox that stretching is actual, and following you on Instagram, of course, stretching is actually what loosens everything up. And as my trainer would say, okay, cool. What, anything hurt right now? I'm like, yeah, my groin's kind of sore, etc. Okay, cool. She would say, let's mobilize it. And I'm like, you can mobilize it. Next thing I know, I'm doing all these weird movements with a foam roller on here and some stretches. And next thing you know, we're actually able to do leg day, because I'm thinking there ain't no way I'm doing leg day today. My leg hurts. But you're right, the body heals itself. So I always thought it was chiropractic care, and chiropractic, I'm sure you agree, is important, but it's not the end all. Like stretching for 15 or 20 minutes a day is a total game changer.
Yeah, I mean, it all depends, and everyone's symptoms can come from different places. So, I mean, even the foods that we put in our body increase our inflammation. So it could be that. It could be what we're saying to ourselves increases our own sympathetic response, which then increases our cortisol levels, which then places more sensitivity on our nerves, which then initiates more pain. So it's a whole environmental aspect. And that's why I can't be in the typical physical therapy clinic, because they don't give you enough time to actually see what's happening with a patient. Like, to truly dive in, you need time. And I need to hear your story, and I need to hear what you're doing in life in order to truly get back into, okay, how can we help? How can I truly help you walk this journey?
That's awesome. I love it. You're doing doing work that matters, Jen. That's the amazing part about it. And you're being fulfilled at the same time. So that's a win-win. So when did this whole social media thingy start to become relevant in your life, where you actually said, you know what? I think I need to give this a solid focus, because this is where we're headed, and it's an opportunity for me to build my brand.
Yeah, it was never about that. It was actually in physical therapy school. I would do workouts and things outside. And I would do a lot of stuff on like the bars or just outside, like, when you're running through a park, and a lot of body weight stuff. And I would tag like the calisthenic pages and stuff, because I had looked up to them and I admired everything that they posted. And one day, one of the calisthenic pages reached out, and he had this is like 4 years ago. So, or maybe a little bit more by this time. And he had over 300,000 followers. So back then that was like a huge deal. And I was like, oh my God, look at this guy reaching out to me. And he was like, we all work out in Venice. Like, you should come down and train with us. And so I did. And once I started like getting into that and really coming down to Venice, he started posting me as part of the community. And naturally, I started getting followers to my page. So I was like, oh, okay. So I guess I just do handstands and that kind of stuff now. And so I just and then he asked me to compete. And so I started just showing my journey of like, what were my workouts that I was training for, and how was I training, and what new skills was I learning. And I noticed that the more that I kind of shared that information, the more people came to my page and actually were inspired by what I was posting. So I just continued in that. And it became like this fun little side hobby from grad school, because I was in grad school this whole time.
Wow.
And so once I graduated, I kind of put Instagram on a back burner. I had over 100,000 followers, but I was just like, oh, okay, that was a fun hobby. Now I'm a PT. I want to be the best PT I can be. So this is where my focus is now. And then a friend, actually Vinny Rehab, he's big in the rehab world as well on Instagram. And he was a good friend, went up to Toronto to visit him, and he was the one who actually kind of reframed my mindset around what Instagram was doing for me. And so he said, a lot of people follow you that do fitness or yoga or all these other things. Like, why don't you just start like speaking into different poses and how you can actually help the body either increase that pose or get out of a pain, like if it's a will pose, like how do you get out of low back pain and all these kind of things. So he actually convinced me to kind of start following his model of using an anatomy photo with a video and start talking to my audience. I was like, oh, this is like a fitness audience. I really don't know how that's going to go, but let's give it a shot. So I did. And I had a lot of hangups about, who am I to put this stuff out there? I'm a new grad. I don't know enough. I have a lot of people that I look up to on this platform and as far as chiropractors and physical therapists. So there was a lot of insecurity and worthiness conversation just about that. And then but the moment that I posted an educational video, it did way better than my fitness videos. And I was like, what? People actually care about this stuff? Like, I thought it was so basic. I thought no one would care. And so it was that was like, okay, let me try this again. Let me try this again. And I got an influx of followers, like truly grew huge just from posting educational stuff. And it made me so happy because it was, oh my gosh, people care more about learning about their own bodies than what I can do in my body. And that is truly inspiring to me. So it was actually something that just empowered me to want to post for other people and learn for myself so that I can share it with other people, because people were learning and coming to my page to get educated. And so that is what kept me consistent. That's what kept me motivated to continue. It had zero to do with thinking I was ever going to build a business out of it.
I love that. Imagine if everyone did that.
I wish that everyone would. It wouldn't be about like status and money and power. It was more about like your passion and what you actually fueled inside to share with other people.
And people can feel people's authenticity through, whether it's through pictures or video or your content that's on there. I was listening to a podcast episode yesterday about a blogger that launched her brand, and I couldn't listen to the whole thing because it was like, I was just totally thinking that, oh my God, I can like talk about what I'm interested in. And I'm like, I can't do this anymore. So I turned it off. But you're like the polar opposite of what I experienced yesterday on there, which is, like my buddy Scott Eddy says, he's a travel blogger. He's got the best job in the world. He travels around the world constantly and is home like 10 days a year and gets paid for it. But he says, I try as hard as I can, Sebastian, to be as real as I can in an unreal world.
It's true.
And I think there's a lot of that needed. And I think that as time progresses, as everything else gets ironed out, there will be a little bit, the playing field will be evened a little bit more with the whole influencer, I guess, space as far as who is, a fit to authentically talk and represent a brand or a product, et cetera, or your own business or product. So it'll be interesting to see to see how it all unfolds. So I see that you've got a private practice now in Los Angeles. And is that where people come and you work with them, or do you go see them, or what's your current day look like with your clients and what you're doing offline?
Well, I've actually been seeing less and less clients. So I do treat kind of one day a week, but I really have been pushing clients off to other physical therapists that I trust in the area. And the reason is because I'm just so focused on really trying to get people back into their own bodies through my programs, because it's been able to help so many people. And I think continuing to spread that message, even if it's a baseline message, like I'm not saying don't go see your chiro or your PT. I still think that's important to get assessed. But if you can do the work on your own and help prevent a lot of these things and a lot of these injuries and just start to learn your body, that's the most important key. So my focus right now is really how can I get people into taking control into their own hands and refocusing and rethinking the way of that we've been taught to think about pain and injury and all of these things. Like pain is not a bad thing. It's actually a beautiful thing. We need pain. If we don't have pain, we don't know where to what to address. If we don't have pain, we don't know if it's coming from a referred organ. We don't know if we have something deeper happening within our body. We need that alarm system to tell us, hey, something's not working right. And that's all it means. It doesn't mean that's the cause. It doesn't mean that's the injury. It just means it's speaking to you. Because low backs, especially, they light up a lot. And we have a lot of nerve endings in that place. So it's common, obviously, we know, to feel low back pain there. But that's obviously where your nerves are going to be more sensitive. So is that because of stress? Is that because of what you're putting in your body? Is that because of all these other things? We need to take a look at the environment, because it's not just your back. Your back is just your signal to your body, or whatever pain is happening in your body is your signal to say, okay, where else is that coming from? I mean, even for me last year, I got shingles. that was my signal to say, okay, wake up. Something is not right here.
Hmm. Wow. So so you're working mainly with clients remotely, or as part of your brand, or kind of walk us through what it looks like for as far as what you're currently focused on. Is that through online coaching and courses, or what does that look like?
Yeah, so I have my 2 courses right now. So I have the mobility method, which is a whole self-assessment. So it's the ability for someone to come in and learn where all their mobility restrictions are, because we will be surprised mostly to find out how, like, your big toe isn't even working very well, or your shoulder actually is lacking more mobility than you thought, or your upper back, or whatever it may be. Like, so it takes you through this whole self-assessment. Then based on that self-assessment, then it says, okay, here are the exercises that would be great for this mobility restriction. Pick one. Like, you don't have to go through this whole exercise, but pick one. Try to do that in the morning. Okay. Where's another restriction? Pick one exercise that would be great for that. And my goal is to have people design their own programs, because unless you know why it's important for your own body, you're not going to implement into your life. I know I wouldn't. If I don't know why this is important, I'm not implementing it into my life. And the reality is, mobility is the underlying foundation that we need besides breath. Like, breath is we come out of the womb, our first breath is everything.
Right.
And from there, you look at a baby and their bellies are moving, their rib cage is moving, and it's natural. Then we age, we get older, we get into stress and jobs and life and kids and all these other things. All of a sudden, your chest is dominating, your rib cage below is barely moving, and we're not even breathing right from our foundation. Then stack on top of that, now we've gone from sitting on floors as kids and learning on the floor to sitting in desks, sitting in chairs, sitting at work, sitting in your car, sitting at home. Like, then we've completely shut off this ability to move into our full joints. And unless you're taking a workout class that makes you get on the floor, you're probably not. So we're losing our foundation. We're losing our breath foundation, we're losing our mobility foundation, and then we're told and expected to go into a hard workout class and not get injured.
Right.
and be just fine. It's a joke. So unless you understand why your foundation is so important and how this is literally going to propel you into a longer life, like literally one of a study that kind of went popular is like assessing getting down on the floor and getting back up as a risk factor for how long you're going to live. So if you can't sit on the floor and get back up without using your hands and your knees, it's going to take off some life from you.
Sure.
And that's a basic thing. But I even have friends in their 20s who can't get off the floor because their hips are so immobile. So it's really starting to get back to this foundation matters. And it literally is the thing that keeps us living longer in order to be able to work out hard, in order to be able to lift, in order to be able to just go through life. So that's why this mobility program is something that I bring into people's lives. And my goal is to get you creating your own program, because everybody is unique. I would never have created a 12 steps to mobility because I don't believe in that.
Right.
You have to do the work, and you know that your body is unique and beautiful enough to assess and to find out.
I love it. For those of you wondering, my goodness, this sounds awesome. I want to create my own plan. You can totally do that. And if you're one of those weirdos that just tuned into the middle of the podcast, we're chatting with my friend Doc Jen Fit. She does have a real name, but we call her Doc Jen Fit, or Jen for short. You can go to docjenfit.com and find out all about the mobility program and everything else she's got going on, docjenfit.com. Don't worry about writing that down, especially if you're driving, because all this information will be in the show notes. So as I was checking out the mobility program, I see a testimonial, pretty what's it called, testimonial from Brendan Bouchard that you relieved his hip pain. How did that happen?
I mean, again, something that I didn't even realize. He was talking about it at a mastermind class, and he was just saying, "Oh yeah, like I used one of her videos, and I implemented it before I went on stage every time. And all of a sudden I'm not having pain as I'm walking back and forth on stages and afterwards. And I was like, what?
Oh,
I
so
had
you
no
were
idea.
you were so you were an attendee at
Hmm.
the mastermind, and he brought up one of your videos.
Yeah.
That's always fun.
Yeah. It was really, and then it was just very grateful and incredible. And he very, very mindful of his body. And he's taking ice baths between um, every night before he goes back on stage, and he's doing mobility work, and he's got his balls and his foam rollers and his trainer, and like he is set
Full
on
on
what he
Tony
needs.
Robbins backstage right there.
Yeah, on what he needs physically in order to perform. And I think that's so incredible, and people don't take the care or the attention to that. It's easier to just sit on the couch and not do anything. It's easier to complain about the pain than to take a pill,
Sure.
hoping it's going to go away, take a shot, hoping it's going to go away. And granted, like, I'm not going to lie, it could go away for a little bit. It's going to come back. And so unless we start to take action into our own bodies, like, what are we doing with our body? There's one of the greatest lessons I had through PT school was working with individuals who don't have this as capable of a body as we do. There was a young man who had cerebral palsy and lived in a wheelchair. And I bring up this story over and over again because it's just so important to be able to remind people, watching him get down from his wheelchair and get back up, and knowing that he lives completely on his own. And he has contractures in his body, and it looks painful and it's hard and it takes him a long time, but he does it. And the moment he got too big to lift himself back into his wheelchair, he started swimming so that he could lose weight and still continue to live on his own. Like, that is fully living into your body. That is fully living into your capabilities of what your body is able to achieve. And yet most of us are not doing that even a little bit. And so really coming back to the gratitude of what I have within my body. I have the ability to do so much. Why am I not using it? Why am I not moving into it? Why am I letting myself waste away?
Yeah. I think about that all the time. Every time I'm tempted to even take a pill or whatever, I'm like, there's a better way.
Yeah, always.
There's a better. I've been doing a lot of breath work lately.
Oh, that's key. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a Fiji breath work. Did I say that right? Was the name of it? I don't know. We hyperventilate for 45 minutes, people. So I funny story. I know it wouldn't seem like it, but I have a huge problem talking to women in public. My hands clam up. I'm a nervous wreck. If we're talking about a podcast, I'll talk to you, no problem. But if it has anything to do with anything like on a romantic side of things, I like clam up and I'm like, I can't talk to people. So I've been like throwing myself into these spaces where I'm stretched and I'm uncomfortable. So real easy though, like the grocery store, right? Talk about the kind of, you like green avocados or the other avocados, right? Just simple stuff, or I'll make a recommendation about something that's on a shelf just to get myself out there. I'll probably never see the girl again. No problem. So I've been doing that at the gym too. Not that the gym's the best place to do it, but Equinox is a little bit different of a space. You've got a really cool like vibe of people that go there. And there was this one girl that always smiled at me all the time. And I'm like, well, if I'm going to talk to a stranger, like start with the ones that smile at you, because it's not very common that you get females to smile at the gym because they're there to do one thing, not smile at you, work out, right? Well, she always smiled at me. So one day I went up to her and I introduced myself, and she's like, my name's Gina. And I'm like, oh, I'm Sebastian. And we just had a quick conversation, and I started following her on Instagram, and I started to see that she was doing these breathwork classes. And I would just hi by, and then I would ask her about her class. And she's like, yeah, things are going great. I just, I sell medical robotic equipment to hospitals as my big girl job. And then on the side, I do breathwork because I'm really passionate about it. And I'm like, awesome, I'm going to have to check this out. But I never really gave it a thought. It was always a hi-bye thing. Well, one Saturday morning, I see her walking her dog not too far from the gym. And apparently I live around the corner from her. So I'm driving around this like roundabout circle, and then I'm thinking, and there's a park in the middle of it. And I'm like, how many times can I circle this park before you just park the car and go say hello to the girl? So ended up not being a romantic relationship by any means at all, but I discovered the world of breathwork. So I finally got out and I talked to her, and the very first thing that we started talking about was being conscious as a human being, as an entrepreneur, as a business, about how we go about our lives, being really conscious. Because I really set out to really up my conscious game in 2019, and breath work's a big part of that, etc. Anyway, so we continued to talk about it. And she's like, "Hey, are you familiar with Reiki?" And I'm like, I am, but I'm a devout Christian and I love Jesus. I'm not religious. I just love Jesus. And I think that he's the ultimate healer. And I don't want to like discount anything he may do just because I'm going to say I'm going to go to some local healer here. And she's like, I totally get it. I've actually thought about it for a few days. I don't want to do Reiki on you. I'd like to just do a mini breathwork session. And I'm like, okay, cool. Had no idea what to expect. She comes to my house on a Friday afternoon. She's like a goddess. She's just gorgeous. I mean, just inside and out, right? So she shows up. I really don't know her that well, but she's like, okay, you're going to need a mat to lay down. I'm going to need room to like get around you, like wear something comfortable, have some water, etc. And I'm like, all right, this is like 2:00 on a Friday afternoon. So anyway, she comes in and she just walks me through the park. Like, this is exactly what to expect. This is how you're going to breathe. And I'm like looking at her like she's got 10 heads when she gets done explaining this. I'm like, for real? She's like, yeah. She's like, listen, it was the same thing, kind of like, I relate it back to yoga instructors because I struggle with that too. And they say, hey, we're already here, so let's do the work. And so she cranks up all these crazy jungle beats that were like it went with the whole process. And I began my breathwork journey that afternoon in my living room, and then graduated into going to classes because I was like, wait a minute, people do this in public, like with other people. And she's like, oh yeah, it's way better. The energy moves and tons of more like, healing and bad energy gets out and the whole nine. I'm like, all right, let's go. So anyway, I've since got my sister hooked on it, my daughter hooked on it. Now my 72-year-old mother's like, I want to go to a class. So anyway, that's my breathwork story. I got on a little bit of a tangent there, but something that calms my crazy ass down. I'm like, if this is good for me, it's good for everybody.
I mean, it really can tap you into places that you didn't even realize. And even people who do things like psychedelics have said like, oh my gosh, this breath work and these kind of techniques have taken me places similar to what, some of the psychedelics have done.
Yeah.
You have it all within you. You don't have to do the psychedelics. I mean, not that I'm against it or anything, but you utilize what you have with you first.
Right.
And come back to that more often.
Right. Yeah, I've learned a lot of that through personal development. I almost missed the fire walk at Tony Robbins' Unleash the Power Within one time. And I had a coach tell me, you're nuts if you miss this. I've done it 14 times. If you miss this, you're going to regret it for the rest of your life. Go back there and finish what you started. And I did it. And I came back and I called her at 3 a.m. and she's like, well, I'm an hour difference. I'm in Florida. So it's 4 a.m. here. I feel like it's like first thing in the morning because I'm so amped for you. But I want you to remember that next time your back's up against the wall and you have that bullshit excuse of, I don't feel like it, that you have everything that you need within you to actually get to the other side. And it was so true. That fireworks, powerful stuff. So what's next? What are you working on for the remainder of 2019 and for 2020? I see you've been doing some speaking engagements as well too, which you're really good at, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, I love speaking. I love sharing. I love getting people back into the why and breaking down some myths that we've been taught about our bodies. But really it's also expanding my membership site. So if you don't want to self-assess and do the work and really create your own program, I have created something that allows you to kind of tap into all areas of what you would think is quote unquote PT. So functional HIIT workouts, so getting you moving, modifications for everything, progressions for everything. There's also core stability workouts in there, like what is the core? How do you activate pelvic floor and breath with your core? Because it's not just about the six pack. And then getting people into movement. So there's mobility flows for every part of the body in there. And it continues to build every month that you're in it. So I really am passionate about that one. I'm also adding in little mindset tools to that one, because if we're not connecting our mind to our body, our breath to our body, we're not doing ourselves like justice. So really encompassing all of that. I'm so excited. There's awesome people in it and it's just continuing to grow. So I'm really excited about that, coming out with an app on that pretty shortly as well. And really just getting people back into their own bodies. That's always my goal, like connect you back into you. I always say in conversation, we always listen to someone else and say, you're worth listening to. Now I want you to start saying that to your own body too, because you're worth listening to. Like not only physical pain, but intuition as well, that gut feeling, that reaction. What is it talking to you, even about the people that you're around, even about the relationship you're in? Don't be afraid to speak your mind. to share your truth and to know that you're worth trusting, you're worth listening to, and your body is worth listening to physically as well. What do you need to move into? What are you neglecting putting into your body?
I love it. I turned down a big deal a couple weeks ago just because my gut was like, and I
Mhm.
told my sister about it, and she goes, that gut feeling is God's whispering.
Yeah. It's so true, and it's everything. It's huge. It's why I got shingles last year, because I wasn't listening to myself.
Life has a funny way of slowing us down, doesn't it? To get us to listen.
Mhm.
Well, Jen, you again, I can't commend you more on the work that you're doing. You're literally doing stuff that matters, stuff that is changing people's lives, and again, getting them back into them. And it's so important in a world of unconsciousness. If you look around, you even go to the grocery store, you can just see that it's almost like a sea of zombies that we live in, and and you being able to do the work that we're doing, that you're doing right now, is shifting that, and it's changing that, because I think everybody has a desire to have a clearer mind and to be into better shape and to feel better and to get rid of that ache and pain, etc. And it's, everything you're doing right here helps them do just that. So thanks for what you're bringing to the table for the world.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you having me on and letting me share.
It was that's what storytelling and podcasts are all about. Really, helping people find out about, maybe somebody that's listening didn't know about you, but they know about you now, and that's really the goal. Or somebody that's already a fan. I know my friend Stephanie's a huge fan of yours, and she just texted me, "Are you still doing the interview? I want to hear all about it. I can't wait to hear you." So, and my trainer too. So I got some diehard fans over here in Miami for you as well. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. I really appreciate you taking some time out of your day to hang out with me and to share your story and to continue to be vulnerable. Don't stop what you're doing, because it's clearly making a difference.
Thank you.
You have to come back sometime again and keep us updated on what's going on in the wonderful world of Doc Jen Fit.
I would love to.
That'd be great. All right, listeners, all the information you need to connect with Jen is on, or in the show notes rather, docjenfit.com, docjenfit on Instagram, and just a great human being to connect with. Super smart. Her content's awesome, and she does these crazy like Cirque du Soleil exercises with this dude that it's like, whoa, I was a cheerleader in high school. Like, that's the most mobile that I got. Well, Jen, hey, listen, have a rockin' rest of your week. Thanks so much for being on the show, and we look forward to having you back on.
Thank you.
Hey, friends, Sebastian here again. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of the Seb Rush Show on Social Buzz On Air. I sure do appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to hang out with me. I sure do hope that you are leaving with exactly what you showed up for, which is more valuable information about how to get your podcast inside the iTunes store. Listen, if you haven't done so already, make sure you're subscribed to the show. This way you're going to get updates when a new episode drops. If you feel so inclined, leave us a 4 or 5 star review and whatever you want, actually. We love you either way. See you next time.